Okay, so I'm going to discuss the biogas project that we do in Nepal for our school groups. I'm not going to be looking here. I'm going to be looking at a screen where the presentation is that I would do. The reason for that is I just want to remember that I've got everything in the talk for you that will help. And so don't be disconcerted by me not looking at the actual screen here. So this is a talk that I do as a standard talk to discuss the story behind the biogas project. Hopefully, it'll give you an understanding of how I present the trip, the parts of it that I get excited about, what I believe are the key benefits of it. And you can tailor that as however you want when you're doing the talk yourself to the groups you're talking to. So I'll start now. I think it'll be about 15-20 minutes long. And yeah, this is for you. So first off, now I start. Okay, hi everyone, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight to listen a little bit about the destination of Nepal and also specifically about the biogas project that we're doing in the southern plains of the country. Just before we get started, if you're in the wrong room for whatever reason or if you're not in the right place, please feel free to go and find the right place. But assuming everyone's here, we'll just get started for the evening. So first of all, I just wanted to introduce a little bit about myself and about my company called Mountain Quests. I think that will help to give you an idea about how we operate and then why specifically we are so passionate about this biogas project. My name is Matt Farr, and I run the company Mountain Quests. We are specialists in Himalayan travel, and what that means is that we take people to places like Nepal, to India, to do multi-adventure trips and service projects. Tonight I'm going to be speaking specifically about a service project that we're extremely proud of, which is the biogas project. But just to give you a little bit of background of what we do, just so you've got an understanding of who we are. We've been operating for 6 years now in Nepal. We have an office both in Kathmandu as well as our sales and marketing office here in the United Arab Emirates based in Dubai. And you know, the reason we've set this company up, it wasn't really set up in the first place as a profit-making company or as a company that was just purely there for business. Really, the reason we set the company up is because myself, I went to Nepal about 10 years ago as a client. I went on a trek called the Everest Base Camp Trek, which some of you may have heard of. And honestly, during that period of time, that trip really was, and this might sound a little bit cliche, but it really was a life-changing opportunity for me. I went to Nepal with little or no knowledge, went trekking, had an incredible time. I won't go into the details, but long story short, I really fell in love with the country. I went to Nepal to see beautiful views, to see the mountains, of course, which I did. But really, while I was there, what I learned is that Nepali people are some of the kindest, some of the most welcoming, some of the most genuine people I've ever come across in my life. Now, that connection with the Nepali people has grown over the last 10 years and, I don't know, 31 trips now that I've been to Nepal. From that very first time when I went just to go trekking. Now I run this company with my business partner Nima Lama, based in Kathmandu, and our other staff there. And really, the company was born out of a passion for the country. And I think that's really important to say, because as we go on in this conversation today, I'm going to give you a bit of an understanding of why we have set up a biogas project in the country and why we believe it's so important, not only for the students who will be joining us in Nepal, but also, of course, for the local people who will be benefiting from this in country. So, biogas, what is it? I guess is a good place to start. I'll come on to that as we go further into the talk. But what I want to do first off is really introduce the country. I want to introduce Nepal to you because it really is a special place, not only for myself, but it just sits in a really nice part of the world. First off, what's the first thing we think of when we think of Nepal? For me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of you sitting here, it's the mountains. It's the Himalayas. Everest comes from Nepal. Everest is sitting there, the highest mountain in the world. I don't think there's anyone on earth who's not heard of Everest. So yes, absolutely, we think of mountains. what else do we think of when we go to the country? I think linked to any mountainous country is a sense of adventure. So by that I mean climbing, mountaineering, whitewater rafting, trekking, mountain biking, all of these great things you can do in the mountains. These are probably the two biggest things that anyone thinks of when they first hear the word Nepal. But something that happens with all our clients when they go to the country is that's what they go to Nepal for, but what they come back with is a love not only for the mountains and for the amazing adventures they've had, but also for the people they've met, and to feel how welcoming these guys are, how much they're willing to help others even when they have almost nothing themselves. And there's a famous saying where people say, I went to Nepal to see the mountains, but I go back to meet the people. And that's absolutely true. It's the whole reason why Mountain Quest exists. And it's really why I'm standing here in front of you today. So yeah, I think it's really important that we have a brief understanding for the background of Nepal before we go any further. But it is an amazing country. It's beautiful. The things that we can do there as tourists are so much fun, and the people are so welcoming. But as with any developing country in the world, Nepal comes with a unique set of challenges as well. Because it's mountainous, the country faces big problems in terms of logistics and in terms of infrastructure. And that has a direct impact on the poverty situation in the country. Nepal is one of the poorest countries on earth. Last time I looked, it was 31st poorest nation on earth. It may have changed since then. I hate to think, but it may have even have got more poverty stricken in that time due to, of course, the earthquake that was there last year. But poverty is an absolutely key challenge to the country, and with poverty comes many other issues. Of course, one of the key ones is a poor education system. So without money, without the ability to invest, the children in the country are unable to better themselves through better education. Another absolute key problem with any part of the developing world. But there's a third key challenge to the country that I want to specifically address today, and that is the challenge of energy and energy consumption. Due to the mountainous nature of the country, due to the fact that it's landlocked, there are no seaports. It has to rely on its neighbors as a country. Nepal has constant, severe energy shortages. Now, that could be energy shortages in terms of petrol for cars, or it could be in terms of electricity for houses. In Nepali cities, for example, Kathmandu, every single day there is an average of 11 hours without any electricity in the homes for the average Nepali person. And that is because the government is rationing power. This is an absolutely key concern to the development of the country and for the prosperity of the people. Having said that, there was also another specific energy problem last year in a fuel crisis that lasted almost 5 months. It just so happens that some of the students sitting here tonight with American Community School, they may have noticed this last year because you were with us last year during this fuel crisis. People didn't have enough petrol to fill up their cars. People didn't have enough kerosene to cook with on their stoves. Imagine the following scenario. There were people sitting in houses in a city, and they had their fireplaces and they had their cookers in the kitchen, and they were unable to use them because they had no ability to turn them on. So people sitting in a capital city were then walking onto their roofs, burning firewood and cooking barbecue style on the roofs of their homes in their cities. So you can imagine it's not really something that we would be used to experiencing, say, here in the UAE or any part of the developed world. But this was a reality this time last year in Kathmandu in Nepal due to a severe lack of energy. So why am I talking specifically about energy? Well, because I'm here to talk to you about biogas. So I think this is a great opportunity now to explain what biogas is. So biogas, as a definition, is the product of natural digesting processes to produce natural gas in the form of methane. In other words, it's what happens with us every single day. Without being too crude, when we eat, we produce byproducts, and one of them is, of course, methane. So that is what biogas is in a nutshell. Biogas can be produced organically through bodies, through us, cows, whoever animals that exist, but also it can be created by building chambers to house animal and plant waste to be digested, not synthetically, but organically within a chamber to then create methane. Why is this so important for a country such as Nepal? Well, in Nepal, in the rural areas where electricity is extremely hard to come across, where people are burning firewood every day in order to cook with, this is an excellent alternative to that, whereby people can cook using energy from waste that is going to be produced by them anyway. And what I mean by that is a biogas chamber is filled with animal waste to produce this methane gas. Now, most families in rural areas in Nepal are farmers, meaning they have animals. They have stock animals used either for farming or for ploughing fields for crops or for meat production or for milk, etc. And so these animals are sitting there and they're producing waste every day anyway. So this gives the farmers who have limited access to power the ability to create their own heat so that they can cook with. Now, why do you think that something like biogas is a much better alternative than just burning wood or buying kerosene? Well, very easy for the second part of that question, which was kerosene. As I said, this time last year, Nepal had a crisis whereby they could not get access to kerosene. So when you can't get access to it, it's not there, you can't cook with it. So what alternatives do you have? You have wood, or you have something like biogas. Secondly, it costs money. You have to buy kerosene. Most of these farmers are in severe poverty. It's very hard for them to find the money to be able to buy these things such as kerosene, petrol, etc. On the flip side, we could argue, well, there's plenty of wood in Nepal. There's forests and trees and jungles everywhere. Well, yeah, that's true, but how do you get that wood? You have to chop trees down, and by chopping trees down, what's that doing to the environment? Of course, over time, it will decimate the local area. It will take away all of the natural habitat for animals, which I'll come on to a little bit later. And also, wood burns with extremely polluting smoke. On top of that, not only is it polluting for the atmosphere, it's also a health hazard for the local people. When people are, sorry, let me just pause this. Sorry about that. Yes, it's also extremely harmful for the local people. In Nepal, in the rural areas, people are cooking inside, just like we are here, except in the rural areas, they're cooking inside using things like wood or biogas. Now, with wood, imagine if you're sitting in your kitchen and you have a fire in the middle of your kitchen that's been created using wood, and that wood is creating smoke, and you don't have any outlets for that smoke other than the windows. You can imagine how smoky, how horrible it must be in there to breathe. Well, this is what happens in these rural parts of Nepal, and the women who are cooking in these areas are breathing in that smoke for about 5 hours a day. So you can imagine they're generating all sorts of respiratory diseases if they're using wood. They're getting sick. They're just not having a good quality of life. Biogas eliminates that problem, because not only do you not need wood, you don't need to chop down trees. Also, biogas burns colorless and odorless and without harmful byproducts as long as it's burning. That eliminates these health issues. On top of that, there is another key thing that we should discuss when it comes to biogas. It has benefits not only in terms of cost and in terms of health for the humans, it also has a massive benefit to the local wildlife. Going back to wood, you're not cutting trees down anymore, meaning that there's forests and there's jungle available for wild animals to live. This is specifically important in the part of Nepal that we're going to be visiting, which is called the Tarai, which is in the south of the country, very close to Chitwan National Park. Now, probably you won't know this. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but you may not know that Nepal has 203 wild tigers in the wild in the country right now. It also has 605 wild rhino, the one-horned Asian rhino. It also has wild elephants. It has the biggest population of wild gharial crocodiles. They're the crocodiles with the big, long, thin snout. They're fish eaters. All of these animals are thriving in Nepal, and their numbers are growing. There's a lot of research that you can look at online about the various reasons for this. But one of the key reasons is that the Nepali government has identified the fact that they need to be protected. Biogas is a key component of the ability to protect these animals. By not chopping wood down, by the local people actually having alternatives to wood, the local environment for these animals is being protected, and these animals are able to thrive. Not only that, but people are not walking into the national park to get firewood and then coming in contact with these animals. I mean, you can imagine tigers, rhinos, elephants. These are not animals that would welcome us, possibly, into their domain. And as a result of that, there would be human-animal conflicts if people were collecting wood and they came across each other. Unfortunately, it normally ends in the death of the animal because a lot of people would carry weapons with them. But also there are numerous occasions where people would be killed by the animals too. Both situations are not ideal. And the having biogas as a heat source starts to narrow down the need for you to go into the national park and to have these conflicts. There are so many other benefits as well linked to biogas. Another one, just one more I'll touch on. Who here has any idea on who's spending most of the time cooking for the family in a typical Nepali family? Is it going to be the men or is it going to be the women? Exactly. I mean, it's going to be the women are going to be in the kitchen. Now, when it comes to burning wood for heat, it's not just the cooking that takes up the time of the person who's cooking. It's also all the time taken to go and find the wood. You know, that could be as much as 5 hours a day, just chopping wood, bringing it back to the village and getting the fire started. Then you have another 5 hours of cooking every day. Before you know it, it's 10 hours of pure cooking or servicing the cooking before you've eaten. Now that is a whole day, which means that the ladies who are in the houses cooking, they're not getting involved in the day-to-day running of the village. They don't have a say into what's being decided, said in the village, and they don't have really access to that as a result of them cooking. By eliminating that 5 hours of firewood collection, it frees up time for the women of the village to actually get involved in daily life. It allows women empowerment within these small villages in Nepal, which makes for a much more balanced society in this area. On top of that, they have the women now have time to also be farming with their husbands, with their families, meaning that productivity of the farms is increasing. By having a better productivity in farming, the families are able to sell more. That therefore increases the amount of money that's being made by the family and allows the family to send their children and grandchildren to school for longer and to higher quality schools. And that allows the children to have a better education and to bring themselves out of poverty as generations go on. So I hope that you can get an understanding of how the benefits keep adding up because you're taking away the need for wood and for expensive things like kerosene and replacing them with a completely renewable source of energy. So that's the background to biogas, to Nepal, and to why biogas is so important in the country. I think it's important now that we discuss what are we going to be doing? How are we going to be going there to benefit not only the people of the village, but also to learn a lot ourselves? Well, in our service project, we're going to be spending a lot of time building biogas chambers. While we're in the village that we're going to be spending time in, it's called Saraha in the Chitwan National Park, we're going to be building 2 biogas chambers. So we're going to be building the domes, the round walls. I'll go through all of that in detail when you join us on the trip before we leave. But we're actually going to be building this chamber in someone's home. Now, these people, of course, have welcomed us and they are aware that we're coming and they're happy that we're coming. But we're actually going to be building these biogas chambers, which is pretty awesome. Not only that, but while we're building these chambers, we're also going to be learning about how they work. We're going to be learning the science behind it, the engineering behind it, and we're also going to be learning about how that is benefiting local communities. In relation to learning, we're also going to be interacting with the local people, and they are going to be helping to explain how biogas has been benefiting them for more than 25 years now in this part of Nepal. We're actually going to be able to go to their homes, see them cooking with this flame, and ask them key questions about how this has helped them, why they chose it, why they aren't still chopping down wood, and why they were willing to pay, because when people get biogas in Nepal, they have to pay a certain amount of money to buy into the concept, and why they're willing to do that. We will be paying for the 90% of the construction of biogas, but each family that benefits from it also has to pay 10% costs. That's not a Mountain Quest stipulation. It's actually a Nepal government stipulation, because they want families to buy into the concept of biogas monetarily, as well as the idea, so that they are certain that when this biogas chamber is created in their home, they will use it and they do want it, because there'd be nothing worse than to build this and then to have it go to waste, and for the people to not to use it. So that's the reason for that. So that's really what we were getting involved in. There'll be 5 days of service, and on the end of that service, we'll be going and seeing how all of our hard work with biogas is helping benefit the nature and the wild animals of the area as well, by visiting Chitwan National Park. And I'll come on to that now. So the final part I want to discuss about this trip is that, of course, we're going there to do a service trip, to learn all about biogas, to build it, to work with the local community, and understand that side of things. But like I alluded to at the beginning of this talk, one of the first things people think of when they go to Nepal is the adventure side. They think of the mountains and the adventure. Now, we won't be going to the mountains on this trip. We'll be in the Terai, which is the flat plains of the country. But we can't go to Nepal and enjoy some of the adventure sides of the trip as well. So just go through a few little things that we'll be doing. We'll be going whitewater rafting. One of my favorite pastimes and fun activities to do. We'll be rafting down the Trisuli River on the way to our biogas campsite. Now, of course, on the surface, this might just look like it's having a bit of fun, but the great thing about starting the trip with whitewater rafting is that we have to work as a team when we go rafting. We're in big boats, 8 people to a boat, paddling together, listening to instructors from our raft guide, and working as a team to get down the river. Now, you may or may not know each other before this trip starts. Some of you may be friends, some of you might not. You may or may not know how to work together in groups, but if you don't, then whitewater rafting is going to help you to learn that pretty fast. By the end of the 3 to 4 hours of rafting, you guys are going to got to know each other pretty well. It's a great icebreaker, and it really just gets the trip started. That's why we started whitewater rafting. It just so happens that it's also incredible fun as well at the same time. On top of that, I just mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, we're going to be visiting the Chitwan National Park. Now, we're going to go to the national park and we're going to go on a jeep safari. And if we're lucky, we're going to see potentially tigers, rhinos, crocodiles, elephants while we're on a jeep safari. Now, again, this may just look like it's a bit of fun, but we're going to do this at the end of our week of biogas to string everything together and to show why biogas hasn't been just good for the local people, but how it's protecting the national park that is home to these critically endangered animals that are now growing in number because their environment is being protected. On top of that, we're actually going to be staying side by side with the local people who are benefiting from biogas. We're going to be camping, which is an important consideration. But while we're camping, we're also going to be interacting with the local people every day. So in the afternoons, after we finish our construction for the day, we're actually going to be with the local villagers, learning things like their local cooking. We're actually going to be cooking with them and eating with them. Not every night, but we will be doing that. We're also going to learn how to fish the local way in the local river. On top of that, we're going to learn how they use things like oxes and caribous to plow their fields that they can then plant seeds in. We're going to learn how to ride those animals. And on the last night, we're also going to be involved in local cultural dance with the village. Now, I'm not going to say too much about this part because it's a surprise and a very pleasant one. But for me, the last night when we dance with the local villagers and we learn all of their culture, it's one of the best parts of the whole trip. But that's just something to look forward to on the trip. So yes, I think that's really the trip in a nutshell. I just want to touch on one thing, which is now fitness. For this trip, there's not a great deal of fitness you need. We're going to be, apart from the whitewater rafting, the only other thing that requires physical fitness is going to be how we get to and from the biogas every day. So we're going to be staying in our own campsite every night, but in the morning and afternoon, to get to and from our project, we're going to be riding bikes. Why are we doing this? Well, that's exactly how everyone else gets around the village that we'll be staying in. It's a lowland flat area, and bikes are a lot cheaper than cars. Also, they don't need fuel apart from the stuff that we put into our bodies. And so we're going to be doing the same thing that everyone else does there. We're going to be riding bikes. So the only reason I bring that up is if you're not confident on riding a bike, don't think that's going to preclude you from this trip. Just get on a bike, practice, get used to it, and you'll be fine once you come into Nepal with us. But that's all I'll say on fitness. I'm not going to go into the kit list that you need. All I'll say in terms of specifics is, 1, we're going to provide you with a full kit list for the trip. 2, we're going to be camping, so you will need a sleeping bag. You can rent them from us. And 3, just make sure you have some warm clothes to sleep in at night. But I'll go through all of that either at the questions at the end, or once you've chosen to join us on a trip, we can go through that at that point. But that's really all I wanted to talk about today. I hope that's given you a great introduction to who we are, into the biogas project, and also into what to expect on a trip. So I just want to say thank you very much for coming in. This is a project that I'm extremely passionate about, and if you have any questions at this stage, I'll be free to answer all and every of those. Thank you.